Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we conclude our 5-day program on the Mother of Medicine Summit, which has been focusing on various aspects of regenerative health with a particular focus on the maternal. As we begin today, I just want to draw in part of a conversation that I had with Michael Murphy last night, with whom I had dinner with Michael and his wife, Dulcie Murphy. Michael, you may all know, is the founder of Esalen Institute, which he founded back in the 1950s, 60s, and it really became the mecca for the human potential movement. Esalen arguably has had more influence on American and world culture than any other institution of our time, because it was out of Esalen that most of the aspects of well-being, the psychedelics, the human potential of all kinds, Stan Grof's work, Maslow's work, Ida Rolf's work, the great giants that shaped culture for the 60s and 70s really emanated out of Esalen Institute. So I really consider my friendship with Michael and Dulcie a very precious part of my life. I had the privilege of working with the Esalen Institute in their Soviet American exchange program during the 1980s and had an extraordinary adventure with Michael and Dulcie. It was Michael Murphy that really went to the Soviet Union back in the 1960s and 1970s and uncovered all the psychic research that the Russian scientists were doing. That, as you know from your own history, is a great chapter in Soviet scientific history and in Soviet American relations. And as we were talking, I asked Michael, I said, "So, Michael, how do you describe our moment?" And he said, "I think we're experiencing an evolutionary jailbreak." And I said, "Wow, that's a very interesting way to encapsulate our time, that we're experiencing an evolutionary jailbreak." And I said, "From what?" And he said, "From yesterday." And I was very struck by that. And I wanted to bring that notion into our conversations uh, today in the following way. The human race has been around for millennia, millions of years as we've evolved over time. And human culture has built what we now have available to us, generation by generation. And what we're witnessing in our time, which is both our curse and our blessing, is that the speed of change is accelerating so exponentially in so many areas of human endeavor. It is considered by some scientists that human knowledge is doubling now every uh, 15, 20 minutes. It used to be said that what our grandparents experienced in a lifetime, our parents experienced in a year, and we are now experiencing in a few moments. So we're in this luminous point in our evolutionary history where the past is being exploded by the emerging future. And we're forgetting what we knew. And in the combustion of novelty, led by scientific exploration, We're being caught up in an escape from yesterday, not because we don't want to honor yesterday, but because the pull of change. What Alvin Toffler, if you read his book, Future Shock, talked about that the accelerating pace of change is cutting ourselves off from that which produced us and is both bringing in novelty, but actually exploding the categories of identity that have shaped our humanity up to the present moment. And I think that's worth reflecting upon as we conclude our 5-day program, because what this group of mothers have been wrestling with is how do we preserve the ancient wisdom, the primordial understanding about even something as basic as birth in the cauldron of exponential change and the explosion of knowledge is an urgent imperative of our time. Because if we're caught up only in the future and we let go of our past, we empty ourselves of the wisdom that enables us to discern those aspects of the emerging future which are healthy and those which are not. So again, I want to honor this impulse of this week in the cauldron of modernity that is bringing in the act of remembrance. We can never let go of the past because that's the wellspring of the wisdom that we need to shape the future. So thank you everyone for joining us here on Humanity Rising. And in this spirit of gratefulness, I want to welcome Stephanie Mines back to the program with many, many thanks, Stephanie, for what you and your colleagues are keeping alive in our time.
Thank you, Jim. And once again, completely pertinent comments. Welcome everyone to the cauldron of future remembrance. And the mother of medicine is, in fact, a prophecy that brings that wisdom and science that we remember in the cells of our body, not in a melancholic way, but with this trajectory towards the future. And the mother of medicine is movement. We were so blessed on the opening day of this program to have a movement introduction, a ritual of initiation led by the brilliant Rosaria Gracia, who is in the Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World program, who is a Tara approach practitioner, becoming a teacher, a movement educator. Dr. Rosaria Gracia is an anthropologist of movement. Movement is the nature of embryonic life. Embryonic life is not a quiet, still experience. It can be at times, but the dominant theme of embryogenesis is movement, is curiosity, is action, is this engagement with the environment that has been misrepresented. People speak of prenatal life from the outside, and the mother of medicine speaks of prenatal life, of the prenatal origins of health from the perspective of the embryo. And the embryo is not a past tense. The embryo lives within us at every moment. And as one of our inspiring teachers, Ibu Robin Lim, gave us this mantra that birth triumphs over disaster, movement triumphs over disaster. So we're going to open on our culminating day with movement led by Rosaria Gracia. Rosaria, please come on and lead us into movement.
Well, what an introduction, and thank you very much for your words, Stephanie, and also Jim. So yeah, my name is Rosaria Gracia, and today I'm the capacity, as it were, of dance teller. And I want to use two imageries for inspiration. So I just tell you a little bit about them. The first one is a dance from the northeast of Brazil called maculele. And maculele is a dance, some people say that it comes from Africa, some people say that it comes from the indigenous peoples in Brazil. Is a dance that it was represented very much during the breaks when the slaves were working in the plantations. And basically, you use the sticks or you use machetes sometimes, depending if you're doing it in a folkloric manner. And you just represent the cutting of the sugar cane with the sticks or the machete. The interesting thing why I wanted to bring it in is because it is also considered to be a dance of defense. So it was something that the slaves used as a kind of way of keeping healthy, but it was done in community with instruments, with a sense of joyfulness, really. And it was with that idea of we can come together and we are training to become strong and we are powerful, but you use it as a defense. It's not an attack. It's used when it's needed. So I wanted to bring it in because I think that the action, like really supporting ourselves in our power, as it were, and use it as a defense for movement forward, is what I wanted to put forward for you today. And the second one that is very timely with that is the imagery of a goddess from the Yoruban pantheon, that is Yansa. Yansa is the goddess of the winds and storms, and she is considered to be the goddess of transformation and change. And is also recognized as the protector of women entrepreneurs. Now, it's not only women, it's only men and people of all genders. So if you could tap into that kind of power, strength, defense, propel to move forward, that is what we are going to be doing today. So I'm going to show you some moves. You can do the moves or not. You can do it sitting down or standing up. The first one is going to be the maculele, the jump. And we are going to go, it goes on 4. This music is kind of 4 and 8. So you go tap and back and tap, back, and around. And again, and tap, back, back, and around. Then grapevine, and tap, and tap, and tap, and tap. And then Yansa. Yansa controls the winds and storms, and then just clears the way. So those are the moves that I would like to use. If you feel inspired to do something else, then please do something else. We are going to start with a handhold from Jin Shintara, which is just there by the sacrum. So kind of a power stand, and we will finish with the parallel at the front. So let's do it. And I hope you enjoy the music, which is again brought in for Maite Inai, who is a beautiful Afro-Brazilian artist and also a doula. And I will put the information as well in the chat. So hold on there. Things of live streaming. Let me put this in connection and it should be all right.
More
Thank you, Stephanie. Over to you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rosaria. This really made me wish I was back in my studio where I could move much more freely. I have a very compacted space where I am. I'm working and sleeping all in the same room here in Illinois, where I've traveled for a variety of reasons, but I was longing for, and I did stand up and take my space wherever I could. And I really love what you brought in today. It's so totally attuned to the spirit of this closure, because this is about action. There's so much about slowing down. This is actually not a time to slow down. This is a time to break through. This is a time to stir the winds. This is a time of action, of investigation, of moving forward. And it's a prophecy, not the prophecy of something old, the prophecy of something entirely new that we bring forth by stirring the winds. So, how perfect, how wonderful. This is the time of movement. Thank you, Rosaria. And thank you for weaving the Tara approach, the sacred sites of the body that awaken this remembrance of the future. That's exactly what happens when we hold these sacred sites that are based on the rivers of splendor, the birthright of resilience. There is no burnout. There is no overwhelm. There is no exhaustion when you are living, swimming, experiencing, responding through the rivers of splendor. Thank you, Rosaria, and I hope you'll be able to join us as we summarize this week and also move into our own future, how we will take this week and carry it forward into an action movement led, of course, by the mother of medicine.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosaria. So this has been a stirring week. It has been personally extremely fulfilling for me, demanding, of course. I have to fulfill many roles simultaneously as I represent the science and the wisdom of the mother of medicine and steer us forward into a movement that will revolutionize healthcare from the ground up. We, as you well know, as Jim spoke to, we are at a turning point. I love that he mentioned Esalen. I've taught at Esalen. I have had transformative times, portals of transformation in my life have occurred at Esalen. That is in many ways the birthplace of somatic therapies. I was initiated in some regards into somatic therapies at Esalen. So it's beautiful that Jim brought Esalen into this culminating day. I want to read from some of my summarizing comments, and then we're going to bring our presenters forward to share their summarizing reflections. And then we are going to speak specifically to how we can bring the wisdom, the science and the wisdom of the mother of medicine into therapeutic and medical practices that are struggling to continue to exist, that must, absolutely must transform in the presence of polycrisis that is really only just getting started. So the magnitude of chaos in our world right now is going to accelerate. It is inevitable. And we are, as Jim said, quoting Michael Murphy, in a jailbreak moment. We are breaking out of the jail of yesterday's patriarchy into the science and the wisdom, the resilience, the unstoppability of the mother of medicine. So excuse me while I read from some of these comments. This is such a prolific time in order for me to really zero in on my observations. Writing is my greatest form of self-organization. Our current polycrisis environment and its inevitable and ongoing acceleration will continue to cause a wide range of immediate and long-term consequences to the health and well-being of everyone, but particularly, and this is a basic understanding of the mother of medicine and her revolutionary revision of what we call healthcare. It's going to be remade, completely revitalized, because those threats of polycrisis that are, and will continue to accelerate are particularly damaging to newborns, children, pregnant women, and babies in utero. What is critical for us to look squarely at is how this is not only about our precious, vulnerable, fragile, and still very strong little ones. It is about future generations. What we know about epigenetics makes it quite clear that the despair, the depression, the very innovated healthcare consequences that are innovating constantly as a result of so many factors, contaminants, but even beyond the contaminants, it's the way in which this fusion of inequity and geographical shifts coupled by the climate influences is actually remaking how our bodies respond to threat. So even from what we already know, we have to be entering a time in which we meet the innovative changes that are our body's attempts to adapt to what often seems unadaptable. So the mother of medicine is based on an ancient principle of protection, the spirit of monarchy. The title of my forthcoming book, Monarchy, comes from Tadeo Maori traditions, the indigenous wisdom that we speak of through the voices of the mother of medicine, tells us that it is our responsibility to protect our children and protect future generations, and the precautionary principle of first do no harm. So the mother of medicine has created, as a mother of medicine, has created a cultural library of regenerative health resources. This is a digital library that is available whether or not we have an internet connection. It's a compilation of regenerative resources that are accessible and that always have a self-care application. So the idea of regenerative health, and this is all part of Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World, the MA PhD program through Ubiquity University, originating really here on Humanity Rising and also at Climate Change and Consciousness, the seminal gathering I organized in 2019. So out of the fusion of these collaborative, community-based collective experiences has been born this understanding that we must revolutionize healthcare with the mother of medicine at the helm. So we're beginning to do that here with the Mother of Medicine Summit in the Regenerative Healthcare Program, with the commitment to creating a groundswell of regenerative health practice in communities. And yesterday we had the exquisite experience of meeting two people in the Regenerative Health Program Chloe Waratini,
of
Courtney
meeting
Graham.
two people.
Sorry, we had an echo there for a minute. Who talked about their experiences as mothers and how that rite of passage, that initiation into motherhood, has birthed their wisdom about health, about the future of humanity, about their bodies teaching to them of what it means to carry and to hold the future of humanity. So today we're going to hear additional summary comments that lead us forward. I'm going to be directing you to the Mother of Medicine Summit, November 7th through the 9th. It's an online program. You'll read in the chat about how you can register for it, how you can become part of what is truly a movement of the Mother of Medicine. So I want you to know that I do not look at the chat. It's impossible for me to look at the chat and do what I'm doing here. I rely on the beautiful Courtney Graham to harvest the chat, to forward questions to me. And I invite you all to participate in the after chat. Right after this program, you'll get a new Zoom link to join the after chat. In that after chat environment, we can see you, which unfortunately we can't do in this context, and we can engage personally. The last few days, we've had stirring, personal, and revelatory conversations. We have about 30 to 45 minutes in which to suss out how you personally are responding, how we can contribute to the evolution of consciousness, which is the organic response to what is happening this week. So get down to the nitty gritty, to get into something really practical, which is how can we begin at these initial stages to infuse the wisdom of the Mother of Medicine into current healthcare practices such as psychotherapy. And to do this justice, I want to bring on Cherionna Menzam-Sills, the author of The Prenatal Shadow, who brought Bonnie Badenoch, a psychotherapist, into the Mother of Medicine community. And Cherionna will introduce Bonnie, and they will have a conversation about Bonnie's experience of bringing the prenatal origins of health into her psychotherapy practice.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm feeling so inspired. And yeah, there you are, Bonnie. Welcome so much. So glad you're able to be here. So yeah, this is I have the great pleasure of being friends with Bonnie Badenoch and welcoming her here and introducing you a little bit to her. We agreed to not do that too much, but Bonnie is, I think you'd probably say, a mostly retired psychotherapist.
Moving in that direction.
Yeah. I had the great privilege and opportunity to attend a few online courses, like the last courses that Bonnie was offering, and was quite blown away. And we've become friends really because of our. We feel a lot of resonance between the way we work, and listening to both Jim and Stephanie today, it occurs to me that the present moment, presence in the present moment, is a portal between the past and the future. And you can't really jump from one to the other, which is why I do the work I do about shining light on the shadow, so we can have awareness of the past. But I see you, Bonnie, as an expert in presence. Bonnie also knows more than probably anyone I know about neurobiology and how to apply it in psychotherapy. So yeah, I feel like you have a lot you could offer us, Bonnie, about how all of this is relevant as Stephanie was saying, in the field of medicine, but specifically in psychotherapy. I think you have a few stories to tell us. So um, I feel like I'd love to hear from you. One of the reasons that I wanted to invite you here is because I have witnessed in demo sessions that I've seen you do, how when pre and perinatal material arises, you know how to meet it, how to be present with it, and just how incredibly healing that is. So I'm wondering if you'd like to talk a bit about how you meet or have met or have experienced pre and perinatal um, experience.
Yeah, I would be glad to do that. Thank you for bringing me here, Cherionna, because my heart is with the child parts of the people who come to see me with their child experience that extends all the way back, even preconception at times when we move into therapy. But I wanted to begin in a little different place, and that is it's something you and I talked about is how I came to appreciate the power of this earliest time of life was through both an experience I had in my own therapy and then the experience I had with the birth of my daughter. And so I want to share those stories, and then we can turn to some research by Tiffany Field about how much is going on, how incredibly exquisitely sensitive we are as even just a little group of cells being held in the womb, how very sensitive we are. So there's wisdom, there's sensitivity, and there's the great need for ongoing relationship that begins right then at the earliest times in the womb. And so, and that relationship is based on this kind of deep listening and just being present and trusting that there's so much wisdom already there if we can just be in touch with that. So I wanted to share a story from my own therapy, and it has helped me a great deal to be able to be with people. I think the key in any relationship, whether it's a therapeutic relationship, whether it's a relationship between deep friends, is our willingness to trust and believe that we can be present for and hold whatever it is that's arising in the moment, and trust the wisdom of that and the depth of that, so that we're not feeling like if I'm the listener, that I have to manage anything. I just need to be there. So I had that experience with my own therapist when I was in my 40s. And this was a session where, as usual, we just opened to whatever was going to want to arrive. I had a lot of trauma in childhood because my mother was so wounded, and there's a long epigenetic line of trauma that runs through our family. And I finally found someone, even though person was not in a female body, but had this enormous capacity to just be present and receptive and make the space safe for whatever needed to come up inside of me. So one day, as I was opening to just whatever wanted to arrive, I became aware of myself as this kind of tall, silvery being that was making the decision to enter this particular mother's womb from a place of not objectivity exactly, but from some distance, a very interesting kind of sense of deep awareness, but also some detachment. And then there was a falling sensation, as though I was falling right into this womb. And if I were to put into words, if I had words, which I didn't, the words would have been, oh God, what have I done? Because I came into a contact with my mother's torment, with her own history that was living inside of her, and that this was going to be the person with whom I was going to be in relationship. And this difference between the soul awareness that this is where I belonged, and that this experience of entering her world at the same time, feeling the depth of awareness as hardly anything at that moment, just this connection between the sperm and the ovum right there, already knew what was going to happen, already sensed what this was going to be like, was already entering into relationship with her in this way. And that has shaped so much of my sense of needing to be gentle, needing to welcome, needing to gather up the experiences that happened in the womb. Um, So that's my first story. My second story is about my experience with being a mother, which happened rather late in life. I was 37 when I got pregnant, and 37 when I actually felt like I was ready to be pregnant. And it had happened because I'd been in the embrace of this yoga community where everybody was having babies and most of them were at home and we were present for them and we got to hold these magical beings and feel their energy and look into their eyes. And it was just really quite remarkable experience. And gradually it felt like that was healing the experience I'd had with my own mother that I didn't want to in some way bring to whoever wanted to come into my womb. I wanted something different for that person. So I wasn't really ready till I was 37. So I figured it would probably take a while to get pregnant at that age. However, that wasn't the case. In the morning after the very first try at becoming pregnant, I was cutting a grapefruit for breakfast, and I felt this light in my womb. I felt this spark ignite in my womb, and I knew I was pregnant. I knew that it had happened, and that is really quite something to have that experience. And I think it was because I was quiet in that moment. I'm sure that's available to everybody, the sacredness of that moment, but you have to be being quiet. And so by whatever grace, I was quiet in that moment and I could feel the arrival of this life. And then for about the first 7 months, it felt as though the soul of this being was around me, was holding me, was protecting me, was just enveloping me in some way. Um, and then feeling like I could be in relationship both with the growing body inside of me, but also with this being who was with me as well. And then at about the seventh month, I felt that surrounding soul is the only probably word I have for it, drop into the body that was being built inside of me in these magical ways that our DNA knows how to do this incredible act of creating a being. And as soon as that soul dropped in, I knew I had a little girl inside me. I would have been shocked when she was born if the midwife had told me that she was a he, because I felt her so clearly in that moment. We were having this warm time, this closeness, this treasuring of her. And it was again, remarkable couple of months after that. So we planned a home birth with all our friends around, had wonderful midwives working with us. I'd been present at several births, which I found to be so holy and so beautiful. And then 2 weeks before my due date, something highly unusual happened. It seemed that my little one had managed to tear a substantial hole in the amniotic sac right at the top. So I was leaking and there was a danger of infection. And so there would be no home birth, which was a huge, sad disappointment. And I needed to be induced so that there would be no infection for either of us. And as we moved through that night, a medical emergency was also really brewing inside of me. So after 24 hours of conscious labor, my Kate was born. The cord was triple wrapped around her neck. The doctor said that she might have brain damage, but they placed her on my belly and she craned her little head around and sought my eyes, and we made this intense contact, and I knew she was fine. And I knew that there was an unbreakable bond already between us. Then I began to hemorrhage. I was briefly declared dead and came back thanks to some frozen plasma, and that the woman in the next delivery room happened to have my same rare blood type. Like miracle kinds of things happened. What I know is that if we had tried to deliver at home, we both would have died. And I know as deeply as I know anything in this world that it was Kate's wisdom in tearing the sack that saved us. She saved us. I know this. I know this. She every year on her birthday, we talk about it and feel into that. So the whole experience embedded in me the wisdom and the active participation of our little ones at every stage in the womb. So that's been a powerful incentive for me as a therapist to value and treasure and carry that embryonic experience that lives inside each person who comes to me with so much openness to it. Not everyone I meet with goes there. Not everyone has the need to go there. But when we do arrive there, there's this gathering in and this holding of these little embryos, as though I could put my hands underneath them and hold them and welcome them into this world. It's precious time for me, and it really is built on these two experiences that were so given with so much grace. I'm so grateful for them. But before I stop, if I have just a minute more, Cherionna, I want to talk about relational neuroscience for just a minute, the piece of what we've learned through that. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just feeling like what you're saying is so relational. I don't want you to be there alone, Like
I really don't feel alone at all. I know you're there.
I
And
just am touched by your story, but I'll get out of the way.
I don't know, stay. You're welcome to stay. So I've been a trauma therapist for over 30 years, and beginning in 2003, I had the great privilege of studying with Dan Siegel. Again, could bring some of the men in here because they also, if they have this sensitivity, have such an important role to play, I believe also. And he was one of the fathers of this merging of relational neuroscience with the practice of therapy. So in the course of studying with him, I also ran across an article by a woman named Tiffany Field, who's a researcher whose work has centered on the power of touch and also on her great curiosity about what happens between mothers and babies. What do we know during this time of gestation? What's going on? What neurobiologically? So she worked with women who were depressed when they got pregnant and to see what was happening between mother and baby. So what we know now is that starting at 3 months of gestation, our nervous systems get mature enough so that our baby cells begin to track our mother's autonomic nervous system. So if mom is often, not just occasionally, but often in a state of anxiety and fear and sympathetic arousal, our baby nervous system is learning that she's coming into, they are coming into a fearful world. So babies that live in that environment actually come into the world afraid. This is such a sad thing. This, hurts my heart to think of these precious little beings that already feel deeply in their embodied state that the world is scary. There's a baseline of anxiety for them already. On the other hand, if mother is experiencing mostly a kind of sense of calm and welcome, not always, nobody experiences the same thing all the time, but mostly feeling that, then this baby's system is learning about safety and warm connection and will be born in the state of anticipating that, which leads her to reach out toward mom. But by the time we're born and these systems are maturing, we will have at birth developed a neurotransmitter profile that tracks with mothers. If you do blood tests and look at it, mothers and babies' levels of cortisol, of serotonin, of GABA, and all of these neurochemicals are the same, and the receptors are developing in the same way. So there's so much that's already set into our embodied system. So that means that by the time we're born, our behavioral way of attaching will also look a lot like mom. So a depressed mom has a terribly difficult time reaching out to her baby. And her baby similarly will have a great deal of difficulty reaching out to mom, not only because mom isn't coming toward her, but because her system has told her it isn't wise to reach out. Although if the depression isn't there, what happens is babies know how to reach out. Our whole systems are set to reach out toward mom. You feel the intensity of that grip and the intensity of the gaze of that baby, and you can feel how their whole system wants to just kind of merge back into mom and be held now that they're out in this huge cosmic place. So what's wonderful about Tiffany is she's never satisfied to do the research and say, well, that's interesting or that's sad or whatever. She wants to know what can happen to change this. And what she discovered was that if a mother is depressed going into pregnancy, medium pressure massage by somebody who's able to really attend to this person, to this mom, is the thing that relieves the depression the most and changes the outcome for this mother-baby pair in terms of how easily they're going to be able to attach. So no drugs, no nothing. It's just relationship, connection, and then the felt sense of hands on your body in a way that is loving and feels really deeply connecting. So I love that. There are things we can do to help when mothers who are coming into pregnancy are really struggling in various ways. Attention and presence, and again, touch. So to say one last thing, this is so interesting to me. Embryologically, we have three kinds of cells, and one kind of cell makes only two things. It makes the skin and it makes the nervous system. So there's a privileged connection between skin and touch and our inner nervous system. And I think that's why the touch that Tiffany Field talks about works so beautifully. So there we go. I can't hear anybody. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
Cherionna, you're on mute.
Oh,
And Courtney, you were on mute. I'm just popping in here. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Tiffany Field was one of my mentors when I was writing my book, We Are All in Shock, that was deeply exploring the nature of touch in regard to embryogenesis and also in regard to mothers' responses to delivering her baby, having been pregnant, and then facing this entirely new threshold. And the Tara approach that I teach is a subtle touch system that activates the resilience of the rivers of splendor, as I've been referring to, which are the extraordinary meridians that form prenatally. So that becomes then the bridge for the baby and also for the mom. And for instance, this afternoon, after this program ends, I'm going to be going to see a family and working with everyone in the family. A child born in a traumatic birth and the parents and the grandparents, as we repattern the deleterious impacts of those necessary, often necessary, life-saving, such as you experienced, Bonnie, experiences that still have traumatic impacts that linger. And I think what's really important for everyone to note, and I mentioned this just a moment ago in my comments, that those traumatic conditions, such as what we're all faced with right now, reverberate through future generations. That's why it's so important. As was so beautifully stated yesterday by Courtney and Chloe, that mothers, that families, that we really show up as adults and take responsibility for our own healing so that as we nurture our children and all children, as we steer our way into the jailbreak liberation time that we're headed for, that we do that with alignment, that we resolve our own residual traumas and become our original brilliance, who we are really meant to be. And I want everyone listening to know that the people that you're looking at, all of us, Bonnie is in the process of retiring, so somewhat less so maybe for Bonnie. I will never retire. That's an impossibility for me. My work and my life are one and the same. It infuses everything that I do. It is my parenting. It is all my relational experiences. Every single one of them are part of this process of who I am, this original brilliance I have reclaimed. All of us are available, including Courtney, to be of service to you if you would like to do what Bonnie did, what Bonnie described as doing with her therapy for herself. That's an important first step, is reclaiming your own original brilliance. And the movement practices that Cherionna has shared, the wonderful rediscovery journey, the womb surround, the Ray Castellino processes that Cherionna teaches and not only does in individual sessions, which I believe you're also trying to retire from, Cherionna.
yeah, I'm not really available for individual sessions anymore.
Yeah, I
Because
don't do very many of them, but I do them. And I also make them available, as I think Cherionna probably does, in the classes that you teach. I'm sure those are including individual sessions. But Courtney, Chloe, Rosaria, they are Tara approach practitioners. And there is this rediscovery journey program that is an extension of this Trailblazer series that is part of the Regenerative Health MA PhD program and open to everyone, that gives you the tools for doing exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So I loved, Bonnie, the personal sharing that you did. It was like when you see yesterday's program, you'll see how you're just continuing that lineage of the mother of medicine, which is completely transparent, that in many ways breaks the taboo, as therapists are given a taboo about not sharing their personal experiences. Yes, exactly. How silly is that? Of course, it has to be done with maturity, but we do it with maturity. And that then becomes a template that inspires people. So I loved that you did that and that you prioritized that, Bonnie. Thank you so much. So this is a beautiful time now that we can respond to Bonnie.
Can I?
And just one sec.
Okay.
And that we can also make some summary statements about this whole week. And yes, go for it, Antonella.
Yes, I have some personal stories, and all my thesis, my PhD thesis, resonate very much with Bonnie's story and work. But two stories in particular. So when I went to London to do my second important research project at the birth unit of St. John's and Elizabeth Hospital, and I was 31. And so I was every day with a tribe, a group of pregnant women. And I was really absorbing the energy, the pheromonal effect. I'm sure you heard about, the pheromonal effect. And I was starting seeing the spirit of a child. My maternal instinct was getting stronger and stronger, because every day I was observing these pregnant women and following them up, up to the second year, postnatal year of the child. And I started doing a series of paintings, mother and child painting, which are some displayed in my first book, Babies and Their Body Language, which was the book drawing on my research project. And then I met my husband, and I was already 37. And I got pregnant 3 months after, getting married. So we got married a year after meeting, and after a couple of attempts, I got pregnant at that age, So what I want to highlight, obviously, I could have conceived even after in my early 50s. But my point is that there is a lot, as Bonnie highlighted, the group, the energy, the pheromonal effect. We are a tribe, and women evolved to live in a tribe, influencing each other. So there is a preparatory time before conception, which enhances fertility. Indigenous women teach us. They go before conceiving a child. I already told this story, they go into the forest or the bush, so in contact with Mother Nature, and they sing a song to attract the soul of the child. And when they feel that they hear the soul of the child, they already consider themselves, pregnant. Then they go into the hut and they just welcome the child into their body. So there is really a lot on the spiritual level that we can do, it, be in contact with women. Nowadays, women don't have this opportunity to be, girls don't have this opportunity to be exposed to images of all pregnant women or images of motherhood. Our society doesn't celebrate motherhood. And therefore, that's why fertility problems. There is no representation of motherhood. These girls women can try to conceive in their early 40s, and they never held a child, a baby. They've never seen images of breastfeeding. Yeah, so it's really tragic. So another thing, also linking to Bonnie's story, is that human wisdom is, much more reliable, can be more reliable than technology. When I was pregnant with Sarah, my second pregnancy, so after 17 months, I got pregnant again. So I was 39. So I had I had my second at 41. And the scan show, that's what the technician said. Oh, the head of the baby looked a bit small. And he started talking about a pathology, I can remember, with the size of the brain small. So can you imagine the anxiety, can be induced in a woman? And so starting really worrying me. So I went to my gynecologist, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Yehudi Gordon, one of the pioneers of water birth, because I did a research project. He was my supervisor. And he touched my belly and he said, Antonella, your baby is absolutely, just rely on experience. He had seen and touched the belly of thousands of women. Said, your baby is absolutely normal. There is no problem. This is serious because, it didn't, the technician didn't even say, and then obviously the gynecologist didn't say they might be. We are pretty sure that the baby is a small head. Sahara was born with actually a head even bigger than Giselle's, absolutely normal child. What I'm saying, experience. We need to rely more on wisdom, the expert touch, and we're relying too much on technology. And I think these devices can save the life, but they can induce technology a lot of worry and concern in women, which is
You're exactly right, Antonella.
Yes.
And this is actually a tenet of the regenerative health design, and of course of the mother of medicine, but specifically regenerative health aims to train regenerative health practitioners, who this gynecologist who you knew so well clearly was. And I've met those too that are doctors and have degrees and that are operating within the medical establishment, but they truly are wisdom carriers. I had similar experiences
Yes.
with my daughter. And the regenerative health program is imparting these regenerative health practices, such as I've collated in the Cultural Library of Regenerative Health Resources. And the idea is to train cadres of regenerative health practitioners like Courtney, like Rosaria, who will bring movement into that and incorporate these resources into her movement teaching to operate within communities, because access to those institutions and agencies and technologies will disappear, not for everyone, but only for the privileged will those accessible technologies remain easily. Entire communities will be stripped, as is happening in Gaza. What is happening, the tragedy in Gaza, is a picture of what is coming. Perhaps not to you in your privileged environment, but to places in the world that deserve our compassion and respect. That is why I train practitioners in Cyprus, in Jordan, in the Middle East. That is why I've created videos of regenerative health practices for refugee communities. The entire global population is shifting and moving into at-risk areas that are inundated with contaminants, and from where these technologies that are desperately needed right now in Gaza, what they would do for any of those technologies right now, the lives that would be saved by those technologies right now in Gaza, and they can't get them. Hospitals can't even remain standing. That's what's happening. I don't mean to be scaring people, because I have an antidote to that. That's what the Regenerative Health Program is all about. And I do have to laugh when people say, I conceived at the age of 37. At that age, I have to, tell you that I had my second child at 46. It's a wonderful pregnancy. And like Antonella, I could and actually did become pregnant after 50. And sadly, I've been thinking of this baby actually as we've been together. I lost that baby.
Mm.
So the Regenerative Health Program is designed to meet the realistic challenges that we see now in Gaza. And Gaza has been mentioned throughout this week. I don't even see how we can have a conversation about regenerative health without sending our prayers to Gaza.
And the thing is that, it's not just the harm from blast wounds, but it's from genetic harm passed down to generations. And the deepest wound is the womb. The deepest wound is the womb, because it's the trauma experienced by pregnant women, or even those who survive, and the harm done to the genes, and obviously all the generation. It will be, I don't know how to heal, I can't think of a solution on how to heal the traumas that will be passed on through generations, because it's so deep.
The way that we heal is through our own personal healing.
Yeah.
And that healing changes the neurochemistry that is epigenetically transmitted. And I experienced that directly within my own lineage, where I've had that responsibility for my family of being the one who heals. And I know directly from my experience that through my own healing process, I have healed 7 generations back, and I am in the process now, thankfully, of healing 7 generations forward. It's through our relationships that we heal. And the only way that our relationships become relationships of healing is through our personal transformation, by fully, in a centered and grounded way, becoming mothers of medicine. And when I say mothers of medicine, I'm speaking of that availability to all genders. That possibility is there for all genders.
I've heard the first step in healing is awareness, and which is why I've written my book about the prenatal shadow. And, we're not going to try to heal ourselves or anything. Thank you, Courtney. There it is. If we're not aware of a problem. And so, yeah, there's Gaza, and there's a lot going on in the rest of the world too. And I've been really holding also the Ukraine for the last several years. And I read a news article, which I think I mentioned in my book actually, about a birth in the Ukraine in the middle of the war. And the mother reported about how, so they were trying to get to the hospital, and they didn't have gas for the car, so they had to go to the gas station. And there was a long line at the gas station because there's such a shortage. And, they finally were able to get fuel and could get to the hospital. The hospital was blacked out, as protection from air raids. And she was seen to, and then there was a siren for an air raid. So she was taken to a dark room, sounded like a basement kind of room, and where she gave birth. And, incredible stress all around this, right? With, bombs dropping and whatnot. But her comment at the end was, that was so difficult. I think it was a boy. I hope that my little boy never experiences anything like this. I was like, but he was there. He had a direct experience of it. That is the shadow. Nobody ever acknowledges that babies are here, present, experiencing, communicating, needing communication. Then that gets all pushed into shadow. And that's what I was so touched by your story, Bonnie. And also yours, Courtney, yesterday, and Chloe's yesterday. Mothers who are so aware of and communicating with their babies, not only before birth, maybe even before conception. And like, excuse me, what you've mentioned, Antonella, about Indigenous cultures, where that's par for the course. Of course, that's natural, right? That's part of what I call our original potential, the original blueprint, the brilliance that Stephanie talks about. There's an intelligence there. So babies are arriving, these beings are arriving and fitting themselves into these little bodies, adjusting to being in this relatively little life and learning about their mother's world. So as you said, Bonnie, their levels of cortisol, for example, will be like their mother's, their heartbeat, their heart rhythms develop in relation to the mother's heart rhythm. You can't be closer to another human being than when you're inside the mother. So they're learning about her world, partly physiologically, and preparing for it. And our modern world is a world that's very focused on fear. I talked about this, I think, the first day. Where the masculine has taken over, it's about separation, analysis, competition evolves out of that, right? And then we get war, and it's all based on fear. Because when you're separate from something, you don't know it, and you're afraid of it. Whereas the feminine, the mother, is about connection, relationship. And Bonnie, you so beautifully didn't mention that today, but relate those to the left and right sides of the brain.
That's what I was going to say, Cherionna. If we can think of it in terms of that, then we get away from it being so much entirely masculine and feminine, and much more that the two halves of the brain are out of communion with each other. They aren't able to work together. And then in healing, they naturally come back and work together. And then we offer both presence, but we also offer practicality because they serve each other. So it's a break of communion between the hemispheres that happened 10,000 years ago in the West, and it's been built on ever since. So we're in the process of trying to heal.
And yes, and this is even far more important for boys because, and refer to the stories, Chloe and Courtney's stories, because they have boys. How important is to bring up a boys able to be in touch with themselves, having the opportunity to have their right brain nourished, because still now in some culture, like the south of Italy, we still bring up, it's like a shame to let the boys play with the doll or pushing in a doll in the pram, or you need to give a gun, play war, playing. And this integration, I mean, Daniel Siegel writes extensively about integration of the brain, integration between right and left brain is essential for, wholeness and embodiment. And especially that's why the mother of medicine will be vital, even more important for boys, also because boys are more vulnerable. The majority of the miscarriages are boys, not girls, so they're much more vulnerable and less resilient than girls. They did, boys go to a boarding school prematurely. My husband, 5 years, was sent to boarding school. They are much more wounded than girls because of this way of bringing them up and able to elaborate and verbalize emotions. So, and this communication starts in the womb. I mean, I've done self-study and with my pregnancy, and that's what I teach pregnant women, the communication. And it's psychoneurological, neuropsychological, and it's the heartbeats. The heartbeats reflect the mother's emotions. The baby picks up through the music, through the heartbeat, the breath, if it's deep, involving the parasympathetic system or is fast, it becomes a range of emotions. And we know very little about that. I think the sensitivity of an unborn baby is far beyond what we can, imagine.
Well, we can learn from the babies. I wanted to
Yes.
give Rosaria a chance to speak because she has two boys, and Courtney does have a girl, but Chloe has a boy, and we are very pleased to make space for the boys. And Rosaria is the mother of two boys. And let me go back to the question that I was putting forward to both Courtney and Chloe yesterday, which is how you, as a mother in these times, are able to care for yourself. We definitely see that movement helps take care of you. I know you have many other resources, but I think sharing those, how you maintain your ground and your center and nourish your children so that they can move into this fraught world with confidence, with hope for their own thriving future.
Wow. Well, it's an always taxing thing to do on a daily basis. They are very different ages. One is a teenager, one is almost a teenager. I think, to be honest, children learn, apart from their personality, they learn by our example. And I think that the most important thing for me is to be able to show vulnerability. That is not because I said so, that I can be strong and I can be having my moments and I can be tough, but I can provide love as well. So if we have an argument, doesn't mean that we are not going to talk to each other or hug or whatever it is. So I think that showing that binary is never an option. It's not either or, it's all of it. And that goes across, I suppose, just my relationship with them, but their understanding of their environments, their relationship with their friends, relationship with people that are neurodiverse. There is not a type. Everything counts, and it's really to go deep down to what the person wants and respect that space. And that's where I'm continuously checking myself on, and that's something that I want to transfer to them. And they teach me all the time because they are far more transparent as well. They say, Mom, you said this, but now you do that. So they really call upon your integrity. And I love that because it's like, yeah, it's true. But that's the thing. I think it's the ego. And I think that I'm going to go back into this idea of the new paradigm, really, that we are talking about. And I suppose that words are useful, but these two in particular sometimes get on the way. And is this paradigm of going something different that is not patriarchy. And when we are talking about patriarchy, I'm talking about domination. So I'm going to change that for domination. And we are not talking about domination. We are talking about a completely different paradigm where we need to have recognition, respect, acknowledgement. So then we go beyond the genders, we go beyond the labels of patriarchy and matriarchy, because people take those hats on as is convenient. And that would really support both the upcoming group of women. And the phone just started. The group of women that also they are fighting for their space. The images of women it can be really disruptive for the finding their own original brilliance in exactly the same way that we have example of men and all the genders. So I think the recognition of the difference and the nourishment and just the rejection of that binary that doesn't really fulfill any purpose. And I think that one of the things when everybody was talking, just came back to, I think Cherionna was talking about this, and it's about the relationship that people have with the environment is also a reflection of how they are in their process. And I think that, as Vandana Shiva said, you know, with ecofeminism, it's just the exploitation of the resources. It's just another illustration of this type of domination, that it doesn't have a role anymore. And that's why the paradigm, that's how we can heal, having the conversation to really change that paradigm. Not that through movement or Tara, which I use to ground myself and others, but it's about that shift in the brain of that approach is not meaningful anymore. It doesn't fulfill any purpose, and we need to change it. We need to change it to just evolve into our original brilliance.
And that is absolutely a key piece in the regenerative health, mother of medicine movement. They're really, in many ways, one and the same, just to distinguish them for people's awareness. So the mother of medicine is this program that you're experiencing this week. It's also a summit, November 7th through the 9th. And both of these programs are part of the Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World MA PhD program. You can, if you are interested in that advanced degree, get credit towards that degree by attending these programs. And please contact me directly through my website if you want to join the MA PhD program. It is a way to begin building these healing in community cohorts. So the healthcare providers that you are yearning to experience are you. And this is a prophecy made by many, many medicine men as well as medicine women. Albert Schweitzer for one, Albert Einstein for another, that even the incredible physicians of today are aware that their skills are ineffective in meeting the challenges of the health consequences of polycrisis. They themselves are frustrated, and the resources that are in our own hands, literally, are available to you. You do have to invest study time. You do have to take the time to learn these skills, to learn the cultural sensitivity, to understand how to be trauma informed, and most importantly, to heal your own trauma and evolve your consciousness. In the Tara approach, that is one and the same. As you use the Tara approach, touch practices that Courtney uses, Rosaria uses, I use, and have been using every day of my life for well over 40 years, your consciousness organically evolves. Those issues that are intergenerational, epigenetic conditions that you felt shaped by morph into a much higher level of evolution, and you become capable of surprising yourself and doing things like organizing this Trailblazer series and facilitating it and speaking every day as the facilitator while simultaneously nourishing people through crises in their own lives. And that becomes fluid. That's what's available to us. And that's what these times require of us. There's no, I respect your desires to retire. I am not in any way. Go for it. Absolutely.
I'm just
But
changing
I'm
direction.
retiring into writing. I'm retiring into writing and supporting other people in their writing.
yes, I so encourage that. I'm doing that all the time.
So I'm
But
just changing direction, not stopping work.
yes, and I so totally support that. But what I'm getting to is there's no retiring from the crisis that is accelerating and that we can make a difference in through the regenerative health programs that I'm making available to you.
For the embryo for a moment, and just
Please.
so my term original embryological potential. I was thinking when Jim was introducing this today, about how life has sped up, which my nervous system totally agrees with. We're not biologically designed for the speed of modern life, and we suffer because of it. The embryo is going through changes all the time, constantly changing, and is incredibly resilient, even though they do have needs. They need to be recognized, they need to be welcomed, they need to know they're safe and supported, just like all of us do. But that fluid resilience that the embryo has is something we can use. Right. And I think of you, Stephanie. So here you are doing all this. You neglect to say that a few days short of 81, you're doing all this, right? I mean, that's pretty impressive, right? In a fluid way. Yeah. So that's embryo potential, original embryological potential in action. And we can access that. Right? And part of how we access that is by slowing down. I had a very profound moment today when I went into the garden. I was in the middle of making lunch and went up to the garden to get some greens. And there's a beautiful black cat that has been peeking in at us we have a glass door from the kitchen into the garden. And the cat has never indicated any interest in getting to know us, but is obviously curious. And the cat was there's some steps going up to my garden. And when I opened up the door, the cat didn't run away. It kind of went. So I spoke quietly to the cat, and the cat went up to a place where there's shade and sat down. And it was right where I was going. I thought, okay, if I'm going to make friends with this cat, I need to slow down. And I went up as far as I could without scaring it. And I sat down and I just sat there. I nearly started crying because my life has been so overly full lately. To be able to slow down like that. And I thought, maybe being here, being with this cat, being in relationship is more important than going and buying the groceries. We could do that another day. I think we have enough for a couple of days. As I just sat there for a bit. And this cat that it's been around for probably about a year and has, not made contact with us, finally let me pet it. It was totally miraculous. And I think that, I had such a profound message of, I've got to slow down. I know the importance of that. We all do in our embryological knowing, right? We know that inside us, but life calls. I think that is, I haven't been a biological mother, but that's part of mothering, is being able to meet babies who are going at their own speed, not at the speed of the modern world. Right? They may seem speedy in some ways, like they can, move really quickly sometimes or shift emotions really quickly. But the speed of the modern world isn't what they're designed for.
Well, my grandchildren are biologically designed for the speedy modern world. And when I'm interacting with them, I need to keep up. I love keeping up with them, actually. I love that high-spirited speed that moves from one idea spontaneously to the next. And I think that there is a new evolution, and maybe Rosaria can speak to this, because the nature of the neurodivergent evolutions that are occurring in our children are in part a response to the epigenetics of this speed. And we need to be able to adapt to it. We can't always be telling that speed to slow down, because it's not always the answer that will be received.
It's about being in both, not be at speed. and not having to be slowed down, but being able to be in both.
I believe we are able to be in both, that even at high speed, this is my experience very much, that when I am the most productive, I am the most slowed down. So it may not look like I'm slowed down because I am almost always multitasking. But in that multitasking, I'm like the eye of the storm. I am the center of the hurricane where everything turns around. And to me, that's just a glorious experience of stillness. And I
Yeah.
very much want to be able to keep pace with my grandchildren.
Yeah, can I say something? I think we need to be very careful the way we use terms and in generalization, because every individual movement, the beauty of movement is the variety. You know, you go for slowness to speed. There is no such, and something about the embryonic resilience. The embryo has a self-organizing property, but this has to be supported. Is resilient because it's within the womb, the mother's body.
Beautiful,
Mother's body,
Antonella.
you need to be careful because it can be very dangerous in a sense that in the mother's body, the embryo is resilient because obviously it goes through all these phases, but is not detached by the mother's force and system. In fact, it couldn't live out of this system. You wouldn't be resilient and they wouldn't be able to do it. Now with the technology, they save even, fetuses at the age of 5 months with the life, long-term, developmental problems. But when the baby is born, he's not resilient because now there is an exploitation of this term. Oh, babies are resilient. You can put them to sleep in a separate room. Can cry until they die. They can cry because it's a good thing. They are resilient. No, they are not resilient. They learn to become resilient through the mother's contact, through the mother's capacity to regulate herself, co-regulate the baby. So we need really to be careful. And I like your observation, Stephanie, because every child has a pace. There are very active children. Now we have to label everything. Oh, is it hyperactive? There is something wrong. Hyperactivity is a response to a system, educational system that expect children very young to sit for hours on a chair. And another thing about neurodivergent, have you noticed that now this is a new term, neurodivergent, divergence? And for me, is another reflection, like Gabor Mate said, the myth of normality, is another reflection of a system that expects children to be the same, flattening of the children. So if you are neurodivergent, is a pathology. But in nature, as Jim, Garrison was saying, in nature there is diversity. There is no, so now
Rosaria is the mother
I'm
of
going to
of
tap in, Antonella, because it's
yes,
all the matter of the perspective. So
yes,
you can have neurodiversity as a label to put people in boxes,
absolutely.
or you
I'm
can have
getting there.
neurodiversity as a label to understand how to work with
I'm
people
getting there.
differently.
we
Sorry,
actually
I'm
have to
getting
come
there.
we actually have
I'm
to come
getting
to
there.
closure.
Can I
We-
finish?
Oh, yes, please finish
What
your
I teach
sentence. And then
my,
I just want to say, Antonella, please complete your thought.
yes, I
And
could
then
just
and
please,
then
yes,
and then we're
yes,
going to come to
because I was
closure.
getting there.
But
Yes,
we can continue the conversation in
yes.
the after
I
chat.
just finished this because it's
Yes,
very important.
yes.
What I teach my pregnant women, I teach all the set of skills which comes from the practice of mindfulness. And all these approach, Tara approach, the continuum, they all contain basically a mindfulness approach, which is the most ancient and the humanity have used for thousands of years, which is no judgmental. So I equipped also them the capacity to deal with a baby that is not the fruit of their expectation. is a baby that every baby has a special needs. Every baby is different. That's the good neurodivergence. So the mother that is able to accept the baby for what it is not the neurodivergent as the system expect, like now labeling, okay? It's the same term, but used in different ways. So mothers need to be able to deal, because nowadays we have this expectation of perfection. So if the baby is not as you expected, and you're not going to connect with the baby, you're not going to pick up the cues and understand meet the baby's needs. So, but these can be prepared, can be really practiced during pregnancy. So the ability to be compassionate, not to be judgmental, and to acceptance of the diversity.
Rosaria wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, I think that this is an extension of the system in the sense that we want to dominate everyone to be in a particular way.
Yeah.
So we are going back to this mother of resilience is really the understanding of everybody's different. We need to respect the surroundings. And yeah, we may have a purpose, but how we get there is going to be very different. And I think Mary put something in the chat about being still, but go with the flow. I love that because when I teach movement, when it's really fast, I always say, if you want to go fast, you need to go slow. Because otherwise it gets out of hand. Is Yansai's creating a hurricane? No, it needs to be a breeze that can build, but you control it to the center. So domination is not fulfilling any purposes anymore.
I think this is such an important conversation because I know about the increase in the diagnostics of neurodivergence in a variety of forms. That's what my clinical research that is published and peer-reviewed has shown, that the way to address neurodiversity in children is through your attunement to them.
Yeah.
And that is taught in the TAR approach. There's a pediatrics component. This is my book, New Frontiers in Sensory Integration, where I document this research and those skills of how to be led by the child and follow them in a way that is attuned to the rapid pace of their innate nervous system. So we learn in pulse listening that which I teach also as part of the TARA approach. It's a very important hands-on skill for attuning to others, having this relational neurochemistry that leads to healing. The pulses of children will always be very, very fast.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to understand what that fast rate is telling us. When I was involved in movement studies, when I was becoming an authentic movement practitioner, one of my teachers was working with adolescents, and I said, what is the key to doing authentic movement with adolescents? And she said, you have to learn to go very fast. So yes, you're right. The stillness and the speed are just mirrors of each other, and we need both. And we need them both during these times. I want to wrap up this meeting and invite everyone to continue it. And I especially invite the mothers, the parents of neurodiverse children, because those people are frequently reaching out, yearning for resources, because they're not getting those resources in the current healthcare environment for the most part. And that is what regenerative health is about. This is what the mother of medicine is about, is the groundswell level, the way that we can be the healthcare providers we are longing for. And we don't need these advanced degrees to become those healthcare providers. So I invite you all to take that daring step into healthcare empowerment. It does require study. It does require research. It does require the evolution of consciousness, but you can do it. And you can do it in a few years' time. You can do it through the Regenerative Health MA PhD program. You can begin that journey through the Mother of Medicine Summit, which will be more of a deep dive into, for instance, the embryogenesis components that we're talking about, what we're saying about how embryogenesis creates the template for original brilliance physiologically. So this is our birthright. This is inherent in our becoming, and it's never too late to reclaim that. You do have to pay attention, though. You have to come out of your melancholic attachment to the past if you're an elder and step into this current time that we're in, which is a high-speed time. There's no way around it.
Awareness and presence, which requires
Yes.
usually.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what Mary, I did note this in the chat. It popped up at me in the middle of this conversation was Mary Spalding's comment that presence is what incorporates speed and stillness. So yes, cultivating presence.
I
And
have
that
to say that
comes through the evolution of consciousness. Yes, Courtney, Cherionna.
in teaching continuum, I often point out that there is stillness in movement. There is movement in stillness. They're not separate.
Exactly. I think that we're saying the same thing. Yeah. So please, if you can, if you support this vibrant feminine dialogue and where it's all heading, which is to the formation of cadres of regenerative health practitioners to meet the accelerating crisis conditions that our children will be faced with. Can we walk beside them? Can we stand behind them as they go into a world of accelerating crisis? That's happening, and that's not going to stop, and it's happening at high speed. Where are we as the adults, as the stewards, as the evolved consciousness? We have to be there beside them, behind them, because they are our future and they will give birth to the future of humanity. And so these cadres of regenerative health practitioners who are culturally sensitive, who are trauma informed, who respect the incredible embryonic unfolding that is our original brilliance. That's what we want to generate. We want to create healing at the community level. So I invite everyone to consider an MA or PhD in regenerative health, to participate in our programs, and to attend the Mother of Medicine Summit, where many of these same people will be present. If this direction feels worth supporting to you, if this direction feels like something you would like to invest in, I invite you to make a contribution. You can do that at the Climate Change and Consciousness website or at the TAR Approach website. They all go to the same place. The nonprofit organization that supports this trailblazer, that supports the summit in November, and that supports the Regenerative Health Program. I will see you all in the after chat. I thank Bonnie in particular for her presence. I thank everyone who has been with us this week. And particularly, I thank Humanity Rising and Jim Garrison for being willing to bring this program into the flow of the evolving Humanity Rising. See you all on the other side. The link to the after chat is available for you in the chat. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. See you soon.
You
Okay.